C.S. Lewis dedicated The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to his goddaughter, Lucy Barfield. Lucy was the daughter of Owen Barfield, one of the Inklings who helped lead C.S. Lewis to faith in Christ. Now, his dedication to Lucy is one of the best I've ever read. He says, "Lucy, when I first sat down to write this book in dedication of you, I didn't realize that little girls grow faster than books. By the time I finish it, I'm afraid you will be too old to read fairy tales. But put it down and wait. Someday you'll be old enough to read fairy tales again, and then you can pick it up, dust it off, and read it then." One of the things I love about C.S. Lewis, and it's true of J.R.R. Tolkien, his friend, is that although they were two of the greatest academics of the 20th century, they were great champions of children's literature and fairy tales. In fact, they believe that you can find great wisdom in fairy tales. I remember one place where Lewis quotes something from The Wind in the Willows, and Lewis says something like this, "We can find great wisdom in The Wind in the Willows if we are humble enough to look for it there." I don't know if many people know this, but we partly have Lewis and Tolkien to thank for the resurgence and popularity of children's literature and fairy tales. You need to understand that the late 19th century was the golden age of fairy tales. George MacDonald, Edith Nesbit, Alice in Wonderland, The Jungle Book, The Wind in the Willows, as I mentioned. So many of the great fantasy novels were written then. But between World War I and World War II, children's literature and fantasy fell out of favor. We were now in the modern world, and the modern world was cynical and skeptical and realistic and didn't go for silly fables. Well, by the time Lewis and Tolkien were starting to become writers, again, children's literature was looked down on. As Tolkien once said, old genres are like old furniture. When they go out of style, they get sent into the nursery. Well, one day, Lewis and Tolkien were taking a walk, and they were discussing why it was that nobody seemed to write the kind of books they enjoyed reading anymore. Fantasy books, fantasy including something like The Divine Comedy or Gulliver's Travels or Spenser's Fairy Queen. And they discussed why was it that nobody wrote this. And then, as legend has it, Lewis turned to Tolkien and said, "You know what, Tolkien? It looks like we're going to have to write the kinds of books we want to read." And they went on to write things like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia and Lewis's Space Trilogy. They were not too proud to seek after wisdom and beauty and goodness and truth in fairy tales. Again, there is nothing about a fairy tale that's intrinsically childish. In fact, Lewis and Tolkien both said that a book only worth reading by a child is probably not worth reading at all. So let us seek knowledge in the great fairy tales, starting perhaps with the Chronicles of Narnia.